Hello, my dear friends. I hope everyone is well. This Shabbos is Erev Rosh Chodesh, and we're going to bench Rosh Chodesh Elul on Shabbos. Rosh Chodesh is Sunday and Monday. That means that Rosh Hashana is a month away, and it sort of like took us by surprise this year, because normally Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur are towards the end of September. This year, the summer is over, and boom, all of a sudden it's Rosh Hashana. Of course, it really shouldn't be a surprise, because you look in the calendar, it's easy to know when Rosh Hashanah is going to occur. We knew this months ago, but nonetheless, psychologically, it feels like Rosh Hashanah has snuck up on us. So Rosh Hashanah is around the corner, and it's time to think about Rosh Hashanah. And I want to make a practical suggestion. I try as much as I can to offer practical advice in my drushes. And here's what I would like to suggest in advance of the Yontif of Rosh Hashanah. I made a point in Shul yesterday between Mincha and Marav, which I'd like to use as a springboard. This Shabbos is Parashas Rabbi, and we do not read the Haftarah of Rabbi. Instead, we read the Haftarah of Aniyah Sa'ara, which is a chapter in Yeshaya Hanavi, the prophet Yeshaya. And the reason for that is because there are Shiva Nechemta, 7 Haftarahs of comfort that are read between Tisha B'Av and Rosh Hashanah, as a Kadosh Baruch Hu, through the prophets, expresses his desire to comfort the Jewish people. And that message trumps the regular Haftarah of Parashas Rabbi. Now, tomorrow also happens to be Erev Rosh Chodesh. Rosh Chodesh is Sunday. And normally when Rosh Chodesh is on Sunday, we read the Haftarah of Machar Chodesh, which is the Haftarah from Shmuel Hanavi, where describes the relationship between David and Yehonasan, where they were very close. Yehonasan was the son of Shaul HaMelech, and Shaul had a hatred for David HaMelech. Perhaps it came from an emotional illness, but be as it may, Yehonasan suggested to David, if you want to know for sure where you stand in my father's eyes, tomorrow's Rosh Chodesh, Machar Chodesh, and my father normally makes a Su'udah on Rosh Chodesh, you'll be absent, and we'll see how my father reacts in response to that. And indeed, Shaul was infuriated, and it became clear that David's life was in danger, and from that point on, David became a fugitive. So whenever Rosh Chodesh comes out on Sunday, we read Machar Chodesh. So now the question is, what do we do tomorrow? It's Erev Rosh Chodesh, so we should be reading Machar Chodesh, but it's also the period of time between Tisha B'Av and Rosh Hashanah, so we should read Shiva Nechemta. What takes precedence? So the halacha is very clear. Shiva Nechemta, Aniyah Sa'ara, because comfort and consolation is more important than reading the Haftarah about Machar Chodesh. Nonetheless, there are those that suggest, and most notably Rabbi Yosef Cairo, the Beis Yosef, who's the author of the Shulchan Aruch, says, why don't you have the best of both worlds? Tag on to the regular Haftarah of Aniyah Sa'ara, tag on the first and last pasuk of Machar Chodesh at the end of the Haftarah, and that way you make reference to Machar Chodesh as well. So indeed, there are many communities that do that. Our community does not. That's the minhag in many places, that you don't add on to the Haftarah. So the question is, why not? What's wrong with adding on to the Haftarah? It's a very beautiful and elegant solution to this problem. So I suggested that the reason you don't add on is because it would diminish and detract from the focus. The Haftarah, the Jewish people have been traumatized by all the tzaras and all the persecutions and all the anti-Semitism. HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself is offering words of consolement. It would be a distraction. It would dilute the message to go and start telling us tomorrow's Rosh Chodesh. Leave that for another time. Right now, the focus has to be Aniyah Sa'ara, the Shiva, the Nechemta. And this lesson of focusing is not only true about Haftarahs, but it's a general lesson in life, that a person, whatever a person wants to accomplish, it's accomplished better if there's a focus. If you're trying to do a bunch of things at one time, if you're juggling 5 things at the same time, most people can't juggle very well, or I can't juggle at all. So if you're trying to do a lot of things at once, usually it's a bad idea. Because, okay, it's true you have to multitask, and there are things that have to get done simultaneously. But if something's really important, that has to be the primary focus. I mentioned yesterday, when I give a drasha, if I try to deliver a message, if I have 2 messages, it's 1 message too much. 1 message, that's it. That should be one message, and then try to support it and bring proofs, etc. But if I start saying, and here's what I want to tell you, and I also want to bring out this point, it's no good, because don't bring out other points. Stick to the message, and that is more impactful. And it's true of everything in life. I had the great pleasure of working with Mike Samuel, our dear friend and member in the shul at the OU for many years. Mike headed the IT department, and he was in charge of developing a software development for the OU, a new computer software program. And Mike taught me many important lessons. But one of the most important lessons I learned from Mike was that when you have a computer project, make it small, not big. Big computer projects are destined to fall and to fail. They don't work out because people can't bite off more than they can chew. If you try to tackle too many things at one time, then, trying to adjust my camera, I'm sorry. Too many things at one time, it's not going to work, because you just get overwhelmed and you can't manage so many things, and the end is the project is abandoned. If you have a computer project, divide it up into small modules, small pieces. Do one module at a time. When you finish one module, test it, make sure it works, put it on the shelf, and to go to the next. But don't try to do everything at once. It will not succeed. And there's been major companies have made this mistake. They've tried, the government, they've tried to make these humongous computer projects, and they work on them for years, and in the end they never get completed. But that's true in life in general. Stay focused. Now, Rosh Hashana Yom Kippur is all about change. That's what tshuva is, change. Tshuva means to return. It means to go back to our roots, to go back where we should have been, where we could have been, not where we are, but to try to turn things back by doing tshuva, by being remorseful, and by making a decision for the future. Things are going to be different. The time to begin to do tshuva is not on Rosh Hashanah. If a person is in court, the time to think about how am I going to prepare for the court case is not the day the court case starts when you're sitting in the defendant's chair. The time is months in advance. The time to think about Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur is today, even before we bench Rosh Chodesh. You have to think about how are we approaching Rosh Hashanah. If we want God to have compassion, we have to show that we're sincere. We're making an effort. We understand that we need to change things, that our lives have not been perfect. We want to make things better. But if we don't think about anything, if we plop down in our chair on Rosh Hashanah and say, okay, I'm here, let me think about what I should do, that's the wrong way. Now, there's sins of commission and sins of omission. There's things that we do that are inappropriate and wrong, and we have to do tshuva for that. But there's also sins of omission, things that we could have done, should have done, utilizing our potential. And perhaps the sins of omission are worse than the sins of commission, because sins of omission diminish the stature of the person. A person who could be great ends up being a midget, and that's a greater tragedy than even, I'm not justifying doing aveirus or doing things wrong, but that is perhaps the greatest tragedy in a person's life, where a person could be spectacular, a person could accomplish so much, a person could be a gadol, a great individual, and instead none of that comes to fruition. So we have to think about where are areas that we could improve. So my practical suggestion is that if we're going to make a list of 10 things, these are the 10 areas where I know that I'm deficient. I'm going to become a Talmid Chacham, and I'm going to change all my midas, and I'm going to daven with kavanah, and I'm going to give a lot of tzedakah. And you make a whole list, nothing is going to happen. It's guaranteed. It's not even like a 2% chance or 1%. Guaranteed flop. Nothing is going to change. Instead, pick one thing that's manageable and make that the focus. Just like you don't read 2 haftorahs, you don't read Shiva Nechemta, and then you tag on Mocha Chodesh. More is less. It detracts, it diminishes. So the same thing when it comes to doing tshuva. Don't pile on a whole bunch of things. Find one thing to change and do tshuva. A practical suggestion. Where do you find things to change? What should you change? How do you know what to change? Here's a very practical suggestion. Phil Rosen has headed an organization called ACT, Achieving Change Through Torah. You could Google it, act613.org. It's an amazing organization. It's been running in our community and other places as well. Every month or two, the organization, which Phil runs together with a dedicated group, it's already 15 years. They pick a module. They focus on a topic. It could be anger management, or it could be living your life with simcha, or having a emunah, or bitachon, or giving people the benefit of the doubt, or honesty and integrity. And they choose a module and they focus on it. How? By studying source material. They choose a sefer and they study that every day. There's a schedule of what you should read every day. And that has an enormous impact. It's impossible that a person shouldn't change. Now, if you're looking for areas to change, here's my suggestion. Go on to Phil's website of act613.org, and you'll see there all the modules of the past 15 years. And there's so many topics to choose from. And there's source material that you could choose from. Or alternatively, you can walk into the Beis Medrash and look at the Svarim, especially in the English section. And there's so many self-help Svarim on how to change this and how to change that. And pick one and make a point of learning that sefer every day from now until after Aseret Yimei Tshuva, after Yom Kippur is over. And maybe if you get into the habit, you'll do it on an ongoing basis. I have a Seder, a learning program. I'm so busy, but there's certain things that I feel are so important for me to learn. So right now, what I do is when I eat breakfast, I have about 8 minutes from the time that I sit down to eat till I run to catch the train. While I'm eating breakfast is the perfect time for me to read. I don't have time to read during the day, but there are svarim that I want to read. I spend 3 or 4 minutes learning a sefer, and I have gone through many svarim that way, and I try to always find something that will be uplifting and inspiring. So here's what I'm reading today. I don't know, it's a reverse image. That's what it looks like to me. But this is Living with Honesty. It's based on the teachings of Rabbi Yisrael Belsky about honesty and integrity. He has about, 200-300 topics, questions about honesty, where Rabbi Belsky responded, what is appropriate, what is not appropriate. And I've been reading it the last few days. What a powerful impression, because it shows how carefully thought out honesty has to be. I read for, it took me about 3 months, this biography of Rabbi Gissinger. I was very close to Rabbi Gissinger at any hour. Rabbi Gissinger was a Rav in Lakewood, and he passed away 2 years ago. The title is Any Hour. The reason why it's called that is because Rabbi Gissinger was ready to help people 24 hours a day. And as a Rav, we all are. We're called on to help people, and sometimes we feel, it's too much. I can't do it. It's too hard. Rabbi Gissinger, there was nothing in the world that was too hard for Rabbi Gissinger. He would turn over the world for people. He would drop everything he was doing and run to help people. He would go to people's houses and babysit because if a woman had to go to the hospital to have a baby, whatever needed to be done, he was constantly buying cakes and cookies and bringing them to people who were depressed and needed a lift. It's an unbelievable book, and it gave me such a uplifting message of how you always never complain about helping people. Always be excited about opportunities to help people. So my suggestion to you is find something to read during the month of El. Pick one thing. Don't take out 10 books from the library or go to this farm store and buy 10 books. Find one thing. Make that the focus. Read it every day. If you could do more than 3 minutes like I do, that's even better. 5 minutes. Don't make it an hour because you won't do that. But make it a manageable amount of time, and in that way, it'll have an impact. And it should be a program that should not just be for Rosh Hashana and Yom Kippur, but it should be throughout our lives, because there's so much to accomplish and so little time. I hope it's not too soon to wish everybody it should be a good year. It's been this past year. We all know it's been a real hard one. This year should be a good year, and we should all have a Ksiva Tova.